the way that you look at a situation has a huge influence in the creation of a stressful state of mind or a calm state of mind. สวัสดีครับ I'm Point, a mental health coach with the Thrive program. Let's talk about stress management today, in particular, how to deal with the Covid-19 pandemic, the ongoing situation. Now, as of the time that I'm making this recording here in Thailand, today there has been over 9,000 newly reported and confirmed COVID-19 cases. And we are expecting very soon the government to announce much stricter rules and regulations and potentially some form of lockdown. As a matter of fact, to add to this bundle of stress factors, a few days ago there was a big factory explosion, a plastic producing factory, Ginga factory, here on the outskirts of Bangkok, that released a lot of dangerous toxins, chemicals, and pollution into the air, which was a cause for concern for the safety of public health here in the area. As a matter of fact, anybody who lived or were within 5 kilometers of the factory were asked to evacuate immediately. So I'm sure with all these crazy things going on right now, there's a lot of cause to feel concerned, right? To feel worried, to feel overwhelmed, to feel perhaps hopeless or helpless, and therefore stressed. Isn't that right? Right? Now let me challenge you on that. To begin, we have to revisit the concepts we've been discussing over the past few videos. And that is, our experience that we call our reality is actually always a result of the way that we look at things, the way that we interpret and process our experiences into some form of meaning that makes some sense to us, right? So let me ask you then, how do you explain what's going on to yourself as you think about this in your own mind? Or how do you explain what's going on right now with the whole pandemic when you talk with a friend? Do you, for example, say to yourself or to a friend, look at the situation, it's so hopeless and so helpless. The government has done such a shit job, has screwed up at all possible steps along the way, and made every wrong decision possible, and now we're paying the price with 9,000 cases reported today, and soon we're going to be over 10,000, and soon hospitals are going to run out of bed space. And what about the vaccination program? It's been so slow. Most of the population is still unvaccinated. How am I going to protect myself, my family, my wife, my kids, etc.? Do you look at the explosion of the factory and say, oh my God, look at all these catastrophes happening. Now the whole pollution is going to get into the air supply, the water supply of Bangkok, and we're going to pay the price down the road. You can't trust the government. They say everything's under control. But how do you know? We're going to pay by having cancer 5 years down the road. Right? This is an example. It's a bit dramatic, but I think you see what I'm trying to say here. The point is, let's really dissect what we're saying here, and let's really look at the implications of the perspective that we're taking by making these attributions or by making these explanations. I want you to notice very carefully that in the example I just gave, in looking at it like that, I want you to notice that in no way, in no shape, in no form does looking at a situation like that help us to recognize or consider what we can do to make the best out of the situation, no matter how difficult it may be. Looking at the situation like that, by its very definition, we are looking outwards to explain a cause for our stress. We are looking outwards to blame something, some external circumstance that leads us to feel that these events are happening to us. They are beyond our control and are happening to us. No wonder we will feel stressed. No wonder we will feel worried. No wonder we will feel anxious, overwhelmed, helpless, hopeless, and feel and conclude that there's nothing that we can do. There's a sense of victimhood to it, if you get what I'm trying to say here. Right? So let me give this food for thought. Why does anybody ever feel stressed, anxious, anxiety, and worry, and feeling dread or fear in the first place? You see, we only ever produce those feelings and experiences when we feel and believe that we do not have control and we cannot predict the situation. Isn't that interesting? We only ever feel stress, anxiety, fear, depression when we feel that we cannot control the situation, we cannot predict the situation, or that we do not believe that we can manage our emotions if that feared situation were to happen. Right? So again, in the example that I just gave, looking at the situation like that, which is just a perspective, it does not get us, or it does not stimulate us to recognize what we can do to manage on our own individual level. It does not get us to recognize that we actually have more skills to control and manage ourselves on an individual level than we realize. So then how do we begin to turn this around? Good question. So instead of looking outwards to feel and associate a sense of a causation to that outside factor and say, for example, blame the government, blame the vaccination rollout program, blame the factory explosion, blame the pandemic, etc., blame the news and the media, etc. Why not look inwards and ask questions like, actually, wait a minute, if I think about it, what am I doing to cause myself to feel stressed like this? That's interesting, because this question now gets us to look inwards and gets us to recognize our own psychological processes which lead to the experience of stress, feeling overwhelmed, feeling helpless and hopeless, you see. So when you ask yourself this question, sooner or later you will begin to realize that, actually, that is true. This is not to downplay the pandemic. We are all in the same boat and we must help each other collectively as a society to do our best to contain the virus. But at the same time, if I really consider it, it's the way I look at it. It is the way that I interpret this that makes me feel powerless, that makes me feel helpless, that makes me feel that it's beyond my control and therefore it is happening to me. So if this is caused by the way I look at it, then how can I change it? Okay, you may then say things like, well, if you think about it, let's take a step back, let's regain perspective. Well, what's happening right now? Well, here I am in the comfort of my home, right? Do I have symptoms yet? Okay, if I don't have symptoms yet, that's one thing to be thankful for. Okay, so what can I do, right? Well, I can make sure that I can make sure, first of all, to get the adequate supplies such as face masks, alcohol gel, and other things that we would need, food, supply, water, right? If I don't have symptoms yet, then that's good because it means that at least I am right now don't have any reason to feel that I have COVID. Okay, that's good. Now, you see, the stress starts to fall away already. Okay, well, what can I do? Okay, maybe I can apply to get vaccinated. If in the case you have applied and you have already been vaccinated, then good. If in a case like me where you have already applied but are still waiting to get vaccinated, in my case, I'm due to get vaccinated in about 2 weeks, then realize and process the experience that you are already doing the best that you can and that you have already taken action. And that shows something about your skill set, your capabilities, you see. Thinking and processing your experience in this way gets us to give credit for and recognize our own skill set and capabilities, which we do have much more than we often realize. It gets us to think in a way that gets us to realize to always do the best with what we've got. We can always do the best with what we've got. Let's say in a case that you feel that you begin to develop some symptoms, for example, a running nose. Well, okay, take a step back again, regain perspective. Now, you're in the comfort and safety of your home or wherever you are watching this video from, and think to yourself, okay, it's a running nose. Go look up the symptoms. What are the symptoms of COVID? Right? From my understanding, running nose is not a symptom of the older variants, but it may be of the newer variants of COVID. Okay, well, take a moment to pause. Consider that perhaps it could be something else. Perhaps it could be an allergic reaction, right? Wait for it, observe yourself for an hour, 2 and 3, and see if it gets better. If it doesn't get better, take the next step. Call somebody else who you may know if you are fortunate enough if you know somebody in the medical industry, call them to ask for their advice. Because you're taking steps, you're taking action, you're taking actions to solve the situation, and therefore you feel in control and empowered, you see? And that's the point. Okay, let's say that you might not know somebody in the medical industry. Well, there are call centers right now, which they may be a bit overwhelmed, but they are still out there. So find a call center and ask for their advice. Maybe they'll tell you to wait and observe yourself for a day or two, or maybe they'll tell you to go get tested at the nearest center. If that's the case, take action. You see? Because thinking in this way gets us to focus sharply on our own skill set and capabilities, and gets us to focus sharply on taking small steps, and we therefore feel more in control and that we're doing the best that we can. All the unnecessary stress starts to fall away, you see? And we begin to feel more empowered in our own capabilities and skill set. Okay, let's say a day or two has passed and you still have some symptoms, or you have heard the news that somebody that you love dearly, or your family member, your friend, has got COVID. Okay, well, what is the best that you can do? Think about that. Well, maybe the best that you can do is, in a case that they need help with supplies, maybe you can find some way to get some supplies delivered to them. That's better than not doing anything. That's better than feeling that this is overwhelming, that you can't change anything. And for things that have indeed happened, if you still have symptoms after a day or two, well, you want to cope with it and tolerate the discomfort in the body. This is not to say to give in, okay? This is not to say to give up. Not at all. Coping in this context means to accept and confront the reality of the current situation and do the best that you can, knowing that you will get through it. You see? That's a whole different mindset than having symptoms and feeling that it's game over. It's a whole different mindset. Coping means putting up with the current reality of the circumstance, no matter how difficult it may be, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, but with the absolute focus that you are doing the best that you can, and therefore you stand the highest chance of getting through it. Totally different than feeling that it's game over. See what I mean? And you need to learn to process what this skill set building process means to you. You're building skill sets. You're building skill sets of taking action to solve the problem and to do the best that you can. At the same time, you're building skill sets to cope with your emotions because you're calming yourself down. You're feeling calm, you're feeling in control, you're feeling that you're taking action the best that you can, and you can let go of the rest because you know that you're already doing the best that you can, and that's the point, right? For me, I haven't been vaccinated yet. I'm due to be vaccinated in 2 weeks, and instead of I do recognize that it may be a bit worrying, going outside right now, for example, if I need to go buy something at the grocery store, it may be a cause for concern. But if I just take the precautions necessary, the correct mask, alcohol gel, if you're feeling that you want to be extra cautious, wear a glove or two, then you're doing the best that you can and process that. So the stress, the unnecessary stress, falls away, right? So again, the key message here is the way that you look at a situation has a huge influence in the creation of a stressful state of mind or a calm state of mind. If you look outside of yourself and blame something outside as a cause for your stress, you will very quickly feel that the event is happening to you and it's beyond your control. No wonder we feel hopeless and helpless. And we don't feel that we can take any action. And because you don't take action, there's no changes that happen. If there's no change that happens, you continue to feel hopeless and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In psychological terms, this is called learned helplessness. But if you look inside yourself and ask yourself, what can I do to make the best out of this situation? What am I doing to cause myself to feel unnecessary stress? Then you begin to develop a calmer perspective. You begin to focus on the action steps you can take right now. And you learn to cope with the situation no matter how difficult it may be. Again, coping does not mean giving up. Coping does not mean giving in. Coping means accepting the reality of the circumstances at play now. For example, if you develop some running nose as a potential symptom, okay, it's uncomfortable. You may suspect that it could be potentially a symptom, but at the same time, you're coping with it, you're regaining perspective, and you are taking action that is necessary in accordance with the current situation. It's just a runny nose. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's allergies. Wait and observe a few hours first, a day or two first. When in doubt, check with the authorities. Check with somebody in the medical industry. Get their expertise to guide you, right? And we're doing the best we can. And that's what it means to develop calm, reassuring, confident in yourself, confident in your ability to manage the difficult situation and also to manage your own emotions in dealing with that difficult situation. And this hopefully begins the process of learning to cope with stress and manage stress better. Okay? I hope this was valuable for you. I know we're all in the same boat now. So let us all do the best that we can and move forward together as a society. Thanks very much for watching. And once again, don't forget, I am on other social media platforms. So be sure to check me out as well. Check me out there as well. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, here on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time. สวัสดีครับ